Okay, I know it's not our thing, but I really, really wanted to dance during that. I needed to dance, I think, a little bit during that. So we're in the last few weeks of 2018, and another Christmas is coming. And I've been looking back on this year, and on this week even, and I kind of been thinking about life in general. My oldest son is going to graduate from high school in a few months. And he's making some really big decisions right now about life, career. And he's at a point in his life's journey when he is trying to figure out how he is going to survive successfully in the world. Who he is. Where he's going to live. All those things that kind of define us in the world. And that's important. You have this incredibly important time in your life when you try to figure out how to accomplish the things that you want to do. What are the rules that you're going to have that is going to keep you from failing? You try to create an identity for yourself. You're trying to get things right.
Moses then turned around and came down the mountain. He carried the 2 covenant tablets in his hands. The tablets were written on both sides, front and back. The tablets were God's own work. What was written there was God's own writing, inscribed on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, "It sounds like war in the camp." But Moses said, "It isn't the sound of a victory song. It isn't the sound of a song of defeat. The sound of party songs is what I hear." When he got near the camp and saw the bull calf and the dancing, Moses was furious. He hurled down the tablets, shattered them into pieces at the foot of the mountain.
Moses came carrying down God's rules, God's law. And he was so sure that after everything that they had been through, that these rules would keep the people from failing. These rules, these commandments, would give God's people an identity. After those years that they had spent wandering around in the wilderness, learning how to survive, the people of Israel are given a gift. They have the rules handed to them so that they can become the people that God intends them to be, to represent God's best hope for the world. They are blessed to be a light in this world. And that lasts for about 10 seconds. Moses doesn't even make it back to the camp before they failed rule number 1, and they've already started worshiping a bull. There comes a point when there's more to this life than trying to figure out the rules. Comes a point where it's more than just establishing your identity and who you are in the world. Figuring out how you're going to support yourself. There's a point when you start to wonder if there's anything more to this life. Is there a deeper meaning than just getting by? Now, in contrast with my son, I just hit this year the halfway point in my working years. And if I live an average life expectancy, I'm just a little over halfway done in this life's journey. I'm becoming aware that there are fewer days ahead than there are behind. I'm secure in my identity, warts and all. I figured out mostly how to support my family. We're not going hungry, as Darren said. We have things. Even though we're trying to figure out the whole higher education thing, we're okay. I've tried to get things right, and I'm now wondering about the deeper meaning to this life. And I feel like I may be just beginning a new journey, and I'm not sure that I necessarily like that.
Moses said to the Lord, "Look, you've been telling me, lead these people forward, but you haven't told me whom you will send with me. Yet you've assured me, I know you by name and think highly of you. Now if you do think highly of me, show me your ways so that I may know you and so that you may really approve of me. Remember, too, that this nation is your people." The Lord replied, "I will go myself, and I will help you." Moses replied, "If you won't go yourself, don't make us leave here, because how will anyone know that we have your special approval, both I and your people, unless you go with us? Only that distinguishes us, me, and your people from every other people on the earth." And the Lord said to Moses, "I'll do exactly what you've asked, because you have my special approval, and I know you by name." Moses said, "Please show me your glorious presence." The Lord said, "I'll make all my goodness pass in front of you, and I'll proclaim before you the name, the Lord. I will be kind to whomever I wish to be kind, and I will have compassion to whomever I wish to be compassionate." But the Lord said, "You cannot see my face, because no one can see me and live." The Lord said, "Here is a place near me where you will stand beside the rock. As my glorious presence passes by, I'll set you in a gap in the rock, and I'll cover you with my hand until I've passed by. Then I'll take my hand away, and you will see my back, but my face won't be visible." The Lord said to Moses, "Cut 2 stone tablets like the first ones. I'll write on these tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke into pieces. Get ready in the morning and come up to Mount Sinai. Stand there on top of the mountain in front of me. No one else can come up with you. Don't allow anyone even to be seen anywhere on the mountain. Don't even let sheep or cattle graze in front of the mountain." So Moses cut 2 stone tablets like the first ones. He got up early in the morning and climbed up Mount Sinai, just as the Lord had commanded him. He carried the 2 stone tablets in his hands, and the Lord came down in a cloud and stood there with him.
Sometimes it takes falling apart. It takes the things in our lives that we thought were so important, having them fall apart, to figure out where we need to begin the journey for deeper meaning. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to go off a little bit. Maryland's loss to this community is one of those moments for a lot of us. We've talked about that this week. Sometimes it takes the loss of someone or something that you held so dear. A loved one. A job that was lost. You think about what we've seen in California, homes that were destroyed, or a disease endured. Sometimes it takes something like that to move us onto a new journey of deeper meaning. Because without darkness, without a major failure, you can't grow. Moses, he had failed in his leadership. Everything he had done, guiding the people safely through the wilderness for those years, the parting of the sea, just learning to survive. How were they going to make this happen? Then to bring God's rules, this gift, all of that, and it wasn't enough. You spend all of those years in your life learning the rules, learning how you're going to survive, the thou shalls and the thou shall nots. You work at improving yourself, trying to keep yourself clean, clear, and put together like good Girl and Boy Scouts. And here's the thing, knowing those rules is really, really important.
Jesus said, "Don't even begin to think that I have come to do away with the law and the prophets. I haven't come to do away with them, but to fulfill them. I say to you very seriously that as long as heaven and earth exist, neither the smallest letter nor even the smallest stroke of a pen will be erased from the law until everything there becomes a reality. Therefore, whoever ignores one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called the lowest in the kingdom of heaven."
See what Jesus did? He put out there and said, you need to know the rules. The rules are important. And then immediately after he says that, Jesus launches into a series of 7 statements about that very same law, saying, you have heard it said, but I say to you, yes, the rules are important. But Jesus is saying, there's more. There's a deeper meaning than just knowing and following the rules. We grow spiritually sometimes more by doing religion wrong than by getting the rules right. Moses only gets the second set of tablets after a life-changing encounter with the glory, the beauty of God. And literally only after breaking the law does Moses himself shine, reflecting the glory of God. What I've come to see is that age is not always the determinant for readiness for deeper meaning. There are plenty of older people that I've encountered who spend much time and effort trying to reinforce that person that they kind of created, that image for themselves that they created earlier in their life. And people who can't retire because they don't want to give up their identity of the job that they had. People who try to live through their adult kids to the point that it starts getting a little weird. People who never really figured out the rules in the first place. Spent years in schools trying to avoid learning. Maybe spent years in church but can't tell you half of the 10 Commandments. That's a different place on a journey. But I've been thinking about some of those souls that I've encountered, of those people who are ready to take a next step in their journey. Those people who kind of got some of those rules figured out at this point. They established an identity that they're secure in. Figured out kind of basically how to support themselves. Or perhaps have faced the darkness of failure, of loss. What I want to suggest to you, and only you can know this, is that the time may have come for you to take a leap of faith. My son Paul is about a point on his journey where he is about ready to leave home. He has to take the next step on his journey. And I sense that I may too. Maybe you do too. My Christmas wish for those of you who are at that point on your journey, kind of moving from one phase into another, is for you to do a new thing. To step out of the comfort zone that maybe you've established for yourself and to leave your country, your family, and your father's house for a new land that I will show you. The words that God once spoke to Abraham that started it all. For a few months now, I've been feeling this pang, this question. I've been considering a spiritual pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And I want to tell you about that because Marilyn played into this. The day that she got the diagnosis of her cancer, she reaffirmed her commitment to go to France. She reaffirmed her commitment to go to New York, where she could go to some jazz clubs, where she would dance for the last time with Jerry. She was entering that final phase of life, and she seized it. She did something with it. So for a while now, I've been kind of considering things. How does that affect me? What do I do with that? The idea for me to go to the Holy Land, to experience the places that I have studied and I've heard about for so long, but more than that, maybe even to go and discover a new perspective or a deeper understanding of where I am on my journey. And so I'd like to invite you, maybe not all of you, but at least some of you, to come on that journey with me. A small group of pilgrims. So on this Advent season, think about it. I'm thinking of a journey of 10 days or so. George Tremolin caught me after the first service and had a lot of suggestions for me. Another light in our lives that helps guide us. And if you're interested right now, make a note on one of those prayer cards and just stick it in the plate later. But I want you to think about it, because all of us are at different points on our spiritual journeys, our journeys through this life. Some of us are learning the rules. And some of us are kind of getting to the point where we need to figure out how to break those rules properly. May God grant us guides and even an experience of glory as we continue our journey together. Amen. Baptism. Baptism is the beginning of a person's spiritual journey in Christ's way. And today, on all this point, on all of our journeys, we are blessed to celebrate the baptism,